Hey, what's up? This is Nick with Rider Magazine, and today we're out here testing the new 2021 Ducati Multistrada V4 S. This is an all-new multi from the Italian brand, and it's something that I've been really excited about coming into this year. So we took it out to Borrego Springs, California, did some on-road riding, did some off-road riding, and we actually got to see what this bike is capable of. Now, if you guys think about the multi, it does date back to 2003. And this is a pivotal turning point for the Multistrada because this is the first time that the standard multi line has gone to a 19-inch front wheel and a 17 rear instead of just 17 and 17. But beyond that, and more importantly, you have a brand new engine, different chassis, different numbers, and just updated ergonomics and plenty of other things to get into. So we're gonna get into this first ride review, and I hope you guys stick around. So the first thing I want to talk about is, of course, the engine. Now, this is an all-new power plant for Ducati, and it is a change. It is a change in principles for the brand because they've gone from the twin-cylinder model to the V4, borrowing the power plant from the Panigale V4 and the Street Fighter. But instead of just dropping that raging bull of a power plant into the multi and hoping it would do okay off-road and on the street, they did significant changes. And just from a high-level perspective, you're talking about an engine that has actually grown in displacement. It is now 1158. They've done significant changes to the gearbox. First gear is shorter, for example. Sixth gear is longer. And internally, there are plenty of changes going on. Now, what that's done is it's made that super high performance motor actually quite usable in both off-road and on-road situations. And you're looking at about 170 horsepower and 92 foot-pounds of torque. And really, the amount of power you have on tap, it can just light up and take off. I mean, you have power everywhere. It's not one of these situations where, oh, you have some low end and some mid-range and top end. No, it's just power all over the place, which is great because if you're touring and you just want to settle in on the road, you can plug it into sixth gear, just do your thing and putt along, or you can get in the canyons, drop those gears down and start wailing on it and have a lot of fun. Now, importantly, it's a very tractable engine. So when you get in those off-road situations, you can still control it. It's still very manageable, despite the fact that we're talking about an engine with serious horsepower. So that's something that we really need to talk about. But moving on from the engine, I want to talk about the electronics, which are extremely sophisticated, as you'd expect for a flagship motorcycle like this. So, of course, in the Ducati rider aids, you have multiple ride modes. You have sport, urban, touring, enduro, and all of these change not only your throttle map, but they also change your ABS intervention, traction control intervention, wheelie control, and more importantly, they also change your semi-active suspension settings as well. Now, one thing that you can do is you can go in and adjust all of those independently. So in theory, you could turn the sport mode into a sort of de facto rain mode if you wanted to and just crank everything up if you just really like that throttle map for some reason. But that's besides the point. So on the street, I thought the electronics did really well. Traction control never intervened overly aggressive. It was totally cool. Smooth throttle in all the modes except sport, which I feel in that initial roll off could use a little bit more smoothing, and then that initial crack on just a little bit more smoothing, and I think that would really help. And then as we went off-road, we put it in enduro mode, and the throttle map for that mode is really good. It really helps you stay stable on the trail. You're getting bounced around and all sorts of stuff, and I think it does a really good job there. Now, the one criticism I will say with the enduro settings is with the Ducati traction control, which even in level 1 is pretty heavy-handed with its intervention. So if you're doing a little hill climb and you start breaking traction, it will cut. Now, the good news to that is I just turned it off and felt comfortable enough, even with my relatively mediocre skills as a big ADV off-road rider. Despite the fact that we're talking about a 170 horsepower engine, you cut the traction control, and it's tractable enough and user-friendly enough to where you can control it. And that's the most crucial thing. So even with that electronic aid done, you were good to go. Now, chassis-wise, they have updated the chassis a little bit, lighter swing arm, geometry is a little bit shorter wheelbase, so on and so forth. And I think what a lot of people are going to be interested in is how it handles with a larger 19-inch wheel. So as you might expect, a 19-inch wheel has a tendency to slow its handling in comparison to a smaller 17-inch wheel. That said, I think Ducati's done a really good job with its handling because this thing is seriously nimble. And we're talking about a bike that at a dry weight is 473 or 474 pounds, which wet means it's over 500 pounds. It really does not feel like that when you're on the street. The only time you're actually gonna see the weight is when you're in soft sand and you're at low speeds and you kind of load that front. That's less a criticism about this motorcycle and more criticism about the large adventure bike class as a whole, because in those situations, it can get a little tricky. So touching on the off-road experience, you know, I think the Ducati Skyhook suspension did a really awesome job. Keeps everything nice and stable. We went through some sandy terrain, some rocky terrain, some high-speed stuff, and it gobbles it up. You know, again, this is a pretty hefty motorcycle, as are all of the flagship ADV bikes in the class, and it does well. So, we're talking about the 2021 Ducati Multistrada V4 S, which rings in at 24 grand. And you're getting the travel pack and the technical pack, which is heated seats, heated grips, and you also get something that I'd like to touch on that we did use, which is the adaptive cruise control and radar. Now that's something that Ducati's really pumped about and really excited about using for the motorcycles this year, because it's the first time that they've done it. And in the automotive world, a lot of people have seen it, Tesla owners rave about it, and it definitely works. It's really cool. You have 3 different settings. You can keep your distance away from other vehicles. And you can also turn on your blinker, dial up your speed and your cruise control, and as you get away from that, or you get someone out of your field of vision of the radar, you just pass them by, get back on the roadway, and you're good to go. It's a really cool little function, and I think touring riders especially will enjoy that. Now, the other part of that whole, you know, Bosch radar system is the rear radar, which is displayed up on your mirrors. You get a little indicator if someone comes up in your blind spot detection rather. And so it just signals you if someone's in your rear view or too close to you and stuff like that, just to keep you, on your toes and make you aware of things that may be happening. Okay, so when it comes to brakes and slowing this big beast down, you have nothing but the best. You have Brembo stylomic calipers, beefy rotors, and as you might expect from top kit like that, great feel, great stopping power, you're gonna be in good shape. In the rear, same deal, you're looking at Brembo kit there. Good feel. I would have liked to raise the actual pedal up a little bit more because it does have quite a long stroke, which in an off-road situation is actually beneficial, so you're not just stabbing the rear brake and sliding immediately. But overall, that's just a little bit of a nitpick that really I can work out if we get a long-term bike and work that out. So braking, good. So wrapping it up here, overall, very impressed with this bike. We definitely want to get it into a comparison situation and see how it does there. But, I think the performance of this motor is really exciting. I think street riders are really going to enjoy it. And it definitely has some off-road chops. So Ducati, doing a good job. Let's get into comparison and see how it does. Now, if you guys have any questions about this bike, go ahead and drop them down below and we'll get you some answers. And the last thing I want to remind you guys is to go ahead and take care out there. Now, later on.